Aloha everyone and welcome to the Planet Grom, where we aim to show people the world around them with videos, answering questions, telling stories, and seeing sights on motorcycles. And in this episode, we're going soft and talking about friends. Meet Mateo. He's one of my best friends, and it occurred to me the other day that it wouldn't be that way without motorcycling. We both work in the same building and we knew each other, but it was all pretty superficial. Superficial friendships are the easiest to maintain, and if you move away, like everyone in my job is guaranteed to do, dealing with that loss is significantly easier if it's shallow. But Mateo is a bit special because he's always down for having fun, and that was a known trait. Everyone at work knew it. Anyway, at one point, my wife and I realized the need for a second vehicle, and I sold her on the Honda Ruckus. The military's rules regarding motorcycles and scooters are a bit more strict than in the civilian world, and I was required to take the basic rider course from the Motorcycle Safety Foundation. Not that I'm complaining, it's a great course for a complete noob like myself, and it answered a lot of questions that I didn't even know that I had. I honestly wish it could have been stretched over a whole semester like driver's ed in high school. Come to think of it, maybe a motorcycle driver's ed in high school wouldn't be a bad idea. Anyway, I was at the course on one of their bikes, the ones with gears and a clutch and everything, and it hit me that this could possibly be fun. I mean, it wasn't fun for me at that moment. I was so stressed out and tight in my shoulders that I emptied a box of Icy Hot strips on it later that night just to be able to sleep. But as I mentally unpacked it after the course, I could see how riding could be fun. And I knew just the guy who would appreciate this brand of fun. Enter Mateo. I started talking about the experience and how he should do it as well, but I also started talking about the mods that I was planning for my Ruckus, and he offered to help. Over the next couple months, he spent a ton of time on my front porch helping me tear the Ruckus apart, install new parts, stretch it out, put it back together, and then troubleshoot where I did things wrong, because I did a lot of things wrong. And all the while, the motorcycling thing, it just festered in his fun-loving brain until he decided to take the MSF course himself. He had a great time. I gave him a bell. We began talking bikes. And I was sold on the Grom as my next bike, and I was kind of trying to get him sold on it as well. I was constantly talking about it. And one day we were driving to work, and we saw a bright yellow Grom for sale. And he couldn't convince me to buy it because I hadn't finished paying off my Ruckus at that point, but he bought it. We would ride to work, we would ride to lunch, and we went on very small adventures since the Honda Ruckus, while a fun project, isn't fast with the stock motor, and it's also not really street legal here in Hawaii. At least not with the mods that I put on it, which make the bike safer in general. Hawaii's weird about some things. Anyway, his condo didn't have any place to keep the Grom that wouldn't end with it being stolen, so he kept it in my garage. He would come over and take the Grom out on rides, and one day he decided that he had outgrown it, which makes sense for him. He's a sports car enthusiast who loves speed, so it was only a matter of time. And I inherited his Grom, which I would not outgrow because there's just too many things to love about it, but I will admit that everyone is different. Anyway, over this period of roughly 6 to 9 months, our friendship had gone from being superficial to pretty deep. He's one of my best friends, and I've had a really good time with him. He was fun to work with, but he was a blast to work on bikes or ride with. He's warm and caring and easily one of the best people that I've ever met. And I wouldn't have known that, nor would that friendship have developed, if it weren't for motorcycles. Even beyond this one example of two coworkers deciding to go on this two-wheeled adventure together, you see examples of motorcycle friendships all over the place. Motorcycle clubs, while they may have been started as a way to band together in the face of authoritarian persecution from Johnny Law, are largely full of friends who are having a good time. A good time doing who knows what, but they're still having a good time. And you can see friendships develop on Facebook groups built around motorcycles and subsections derived from them. It's not uncommon at all for someone to move to an area, join a motorcycle group dedicated to that region, ask who's nearby, and then go for rides. And it's not uncommon for riding buddies to just become, normal old buddies over time. Here in Hawaii, there's a Grom Facebook page run by a guy named Travis, who I started talking to because he also runs the Ruckus page for the island, and he's one of the top probably 3 people that helped me figure out my issues with my Ruckus mods, and now we're buds. And that Hawaii Grom Facebook page has a fun trend of taking pictures of people on Groms and trying to identify them in order to bring them into the group so that they can go on group rides. They're actively recruiting Grom riders in a fun way to add to group rides. And can we talk about group rides for a minute? What better place to figure out if you want to be friends with someone than at a place where you can meet up, ogle each other's bikes, and then go on a ride together? While huge group rides do happen, it's not uncommon for it to eventually start to splinter off based on riding skill or what you want to do. For instance, the people who want to speed will obviously go to the front, and people who just want to cruise will eventually fall behind. Thinking about motorcycles, it's easy to think of the lone rider. The gruff, bearded, denim or leather-clad biker wearing a half-shell and sunglasses, mouth set in full grimace mode, roaring down a desolate road toward a setting sun. And that's great. Motorcycles are great solo vehicles that do wonders for clearing your head, putting you in a meditative state because you have to focus on your riding and not whatever's troubling you. They're fun enough on their own. But to pretend that they don't build new friendships, reinforce existing ones, and give us all a common platform to build at least a conversation on is ridiculous. I mean, you can try to be Grump Pants McGee all you want, but there's just too many people making friends and having fun to pretend that it doesn't exist or have real benefits. What benefits, you might ask? Well, there's the platform for one thing. Being able to talk to anyone whose left shoe is way more jacked than their right makes for easier conversations at brunches, garden parties, toga parties, kids' recitals, or whatever it was that dragged you out of the house. But there have been a ton of people who have tackled long trips, fell into trouble, and needed help only to have a complete stranger stop and help them based solely on the fact that they are also a rider. Or how about the people that depend on those friendships and communities to help them through difficult parts in their life? Sometimes motorcycling and the communities inside it are very serious. There are motorcycle groups dedicated to getting people through sobriety, PTSD, depression, loneliness, or even the completely alien world that is jumping from the military into civilian life. But they can also be a little bit more lighthearted and fun, like the Grom groups out there. Or they can be somewhere in the middle. There are women's-only motorcycle clubs that exist to give women a safe, nurturing place to get a grip on riding and not have to deal with the boys' club mentality that has permeated the culture. And there are a lot of women who have always wanted to ride, but were told not to by men in their lives. So a group of women saying that 1, it's okay to ride, and 2, here's a community for them to ride in, which they can be mentored into better riders while realizing their own dreams and potential, is a really cool thing. It's all really interesting when you think about it, because the motorcycle is solidly built for one person, 2 if you want, and more if you're absolutely nuts. Yet this vehicle built for 1 or 2 people is easier to gather people and make friends than a vehicle made for more people to fit in. It's not crazy at all to be approached by someone wanting to talk about your bike. But how weird would it be to have some rando come up to you wanting to talk about how they also have a minivan or had one when they were younger? And isn't it just awesome how many cubic feet are available? Ugh, it's just so much fun to go and see how many IKEA furniture boxes you can fit inside, right? No, that's weird. But anything about motorcycles is fair game because they're magic, pure and simple. While they don't directly transcend race, sex, prejudices, they give us the ability to do so because to a lot of us, our love of motorcycles is greater than our distaste for particular sects of people. We could use that to get closer with each other and build a better world little by little and one motorcyclist at a time. So maybe motorcycles, maybe they aren't magic, but the commonality they give us and the potential to have that commonality built on, that's magic enough for me. In the end, motorcycles are fun machines for anyone alone, but they take on a whole new life when friends are introduced, and it is uniquely conducive to strengthening friendships and building completely new ones. And as much fun as you can have alone, you're bound to have even more if a friend is with you. So what do you think? Are you a solo rider only, or do you like riding with people? Have you made friends from motorcycling? Let me know in the comments below, and until next time, mahalo nui loa.